napkin, Isadora Duncan. That Arthur gave that to me. Arthur gave me a lot of my gestures in the film. He specifically would tell me exactly how he wanted me to look, where he wanted me to be, how he wanted me to move. He was that concise and that generous. I just kept changing jobs. I worked at Grauman's Chinese Theater in the ticket booth till I told a girl she had bad BO, and then I got fired. And then I was living in the theater, met Jean Lasco, and then he had me meet Arthur Penn. And I had a boyfriend, and I told him I was going to meet Arthur Penn, and he freaked out, but I didn't know who he was. But I had seen Little Big Man, and I'd seen Bonnie and Clyde. So then when he told me who he was, I was sort of, great, this is exciting, you know. But not growing up in the business and coming from a farm family in Minnesota, you know, you're not awestruck by anything because it's sort of, the world is just the world. That's how I saw it. So I met Arthur, and I was very naive. I was 17, you don't know much. You know, he was trying to see if I could play somebody 28, not just 18, because the movie had such a large span of time for the character. So he was grooming me, and he was actually trying to see if I knew how to take direction, if I could even do it. So he gave me some really difficult monologues to learn, and we worked them. And then he said, okay, I'm going to give you a screen test. But I met him 6 times over probably 6 weeks. And then I did a 8-hour screen test with Craig Wasson, because he was already cast. Arthur is a actor's studio teacher. He was a board member there. He was a director. So he really used the method, sort of Stanislavski, which is that he would actually do things while filming to get us into a deeper place emotionally. And I think even having my parents on set that day for the fight was very intentional. You know, the day that I had the baby, I know that you asked me about the baby scene. You know, we hired a pregnant woman, and they rigged a table so that my head sat in to look like it was my body. And I held these things on the side so they were my arms. But she was completely covered except for her stomach. Genius. Yeah, I was 5 months in Chicago, and it started the second week of July. That's when we started rehearsing. And I think it was the final week of July when he started filming. So we had like 3 weeks before we started filming. And we shot in Gary, Indiana. We had Teamsters that would drive us to the set. My house was in Gary, Indiana. There was times when we were shooting, because the steel mills were still going at that point, where the soot from the steel mills at night would just bring a layer of dust, like dirt, upon everything. There was grit, and it was all authentic to Steve Tessich's family and where he grew up. And then we shot for a few weeks in New York, which was my first time in New York. And yeah, it was really wild. I was wild at that time. Like I was, I was Georgia, and it was 1980. And so in 1980, there was a lot of free-for-all for everything, drugs, alcohol. And Arthur really allowed us to just be who we were. Another Arthur Penn thing. Arthur Penn never allowed me to watch any of the dailies You know, those are the film, that's the stuff that they would shoot the day before. Until Lois Smith did her scenes with Craig Wasson with Where Everybody's Dead. And Craig comes back to the mansion. And Arthur said, I want you to come and watch Lois's stuff tonight. I want you to come watch the dailies. And I got to watch Lois Smith do about 20-some different takes on that scene. And it changed me as an actor. Like I understood what he was expecting of me, because I'd never seen anybody do. And she did it 20 different ways. And I always, coming from the theater, I always thought you learned a part a certain way, and then you perfected it, you made nuances, but they were subtle. But she made me see that I could totally do it, take cadences differently, change, the way I put the inflection. And that was Arthur. Arthur did that. I mean, he had that kind of auteurism for actors to understand, even guiding me in a certain way. So, changed me. The party scene was 5 days we shot that party. And that was very weird because, it was like we were on acid. And I think Arthur, again, he created an ambiance of just exhausting everybody, so that by the time that shot was done where the car goes out, we were all literally just in another dimension, really. I mean, it was exhausting. The whole thing with Isadora Duncan in the hand, that was all Arthur. Arthur told me exactly how he wanted my hand to make a shadow on my face and do this whole thing. And I kept trying, to make it my own, because that's what, when you're directed to do gesture, you want it to come organically out of your own sense of, what comes naturally. So, that was difficult, because whenever you're doing it for a shot, so there's a particular thing he's looking for, and he's not telling me what that is. He just wants me to try to put this in there in a certain way. And so he would speak very eloquently about, well, she's seeing this thing right there, and it comes right about here. He wouldn't try to tell me anything technical. He would always speak in the language of the character, so that I would understand it. And that's because he knew actors. Because if I was trying to do a technical thing, then you would feel that as the audience. You would know that I'm trying to put my hand here. But so a real good director, again, is speaking about why this gesture is even happening and what you're doing it for, and the movement of it, so it's organic and fluid. And that's what I remember about that scene, just trying to get what he wanted